Okay, so as you may have noticed, there are basically two kinds of shields that you can use in dagger gear, irrespective of general shape. There is the punch shield, like this. I call that because I hold it and I sort of punch with it. And then there's the strap shield, like that. See?
Straps.
And you strap it on like this. See? Okay. And each style has its own advantages and disadvantages. We'll try to cover them throughout the lesson as we demonstrate more aggressive shield work as well as various kinds of shield blocks. Now, as far as your weapon goes, I personally think that the sword is the best weapon to use in dagger here because you have the most control and the most speed and the most precision with it. And this is the sword that I use. And this is about 38 inches long. It's a little on the long side. You might want to use something more like 36 inches. 36 inches is probably a good size for most people. This is about 34. 34 is also a good choice. So I would say no shorter than 32, unless you have something special in mind. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go over is your stance. And as you might expect, the stance is the foundation, if you will, for any good fighting style. And in sword and shield, it's important that you have your feet in a position where they won't interfere with each other and where they'll give you the most mobility and stability. So for me, I found that the best way to do it is to sort of stand in basically a walking stance. And then you want to stretch it out a little bit, maybe about like this. And you want to be in a position where you can shift the weight on your feet easily without having to fumble around too much. So I would say feet a little bit wider than shoulders and pointed, your front foot pointed towards your opponent and your other foot pointed out at about 45 degrees. But you can vary this up. You might want to have it at about 90 degrees like this to push better, or even closer to straight if you're walking, or any combination thereof. Now, when you advance towards your opponent, what you really don't want to do when you've already engaged with your opponent is cross your feet. So when you're fighting and you've already engaged an opponent, you want to advance like this. I know it might look kind of dumb, but this way you will not get caught in mid-stride and have someone hit you. So let's demonstrate with my sparring partner. So let's say, imagine I have a weapon and shield, and I'm advancing towards him like this, and then he attacks me. I'm sort of in the middle of doing my move. I'm not on my base, and it's easy for him to catch me. Whereas if I'm advancing like this, I can control the speed much more easily, and I can even go in and out. You know, I think you can see why it's good to keep your feet like this and not all over the place. Okay, so now we're going to add in the shield and the weapon. So establishing that same basic stance that we talked about earlier, it's the shield foot forward, the sword foot backward. Generally, you want to have your weight on your back foot, because if someone attacks your front leg, it's that much easier just to get it right out of the way. So, shield foot forward, sword foot back. Then with a punch shield, you want to hold it out like this, a few inches away from your body, and angle it down. That means that if someone hits you, the punch shield is naturally weaker than the strap shield because you only have your hand holding it. So if you angle it down like that, you can absorb more of a hit before it carries through to you. Then, you have your sword up like this. This is a basic defensive stance. I would call it the triangle defense, because you'll notice that there's the front edge of my shield, my sword, and the bottom of my torso form a triangle. And if my opponent gets inside there, then I'm dead, but it's very easy to move all parts of the triangle in or out in order to protect your kill zone. Now, it's very important when you hold your shield that you do not expose this shoulder. If your shoulder is exposed like that, it's very easy for your opponent just to get you right there, and then you're dead, because this is death. So In order to ensure that, you just have to be aware that of where your shield is, because just a few inches can make all the difference between living and dying from this simple shot. Now, the defensive stance with the strap shield is basically the same. So Yari, why don't you get into it from the side here? See, it has the same triangular area that he can easily defend by moving his shield and his weapon and his body around. Now with the strap shield, you don't have to have it quite as far away from your body because it is a naturally stronger base from which to defend against attacks. But you still have to be aware of the shoulder. If he drops the shield down, I can do this all day. Now, in this case, you'll notice the shield has the straps at an angle. This makes it much easier to protect your shoulder without trying to. See? You can do this all day and it won't hit him. There is the punch shield, like this. Then there's the strap shield, like that. I personally think that the sword is the best weapon to use in dagger here because you have the most control and the most speed and the most precision with it. Feet a little bit wider than shoulders and pointed, your front foot pointed towards your opponent and your other foot pointed out at about 45 degrees. But you can vary this up. You want to advance like this. There's the front edge of my shield, my sword, and the bottom of my torso form a triangle. See, it has the same triangular area that he can easily defend by moving his shield and his weapon and his body around. It's very important when you hold your shield that you do not expose this shoulder.